Everybody ready? Everybody ready? All rise for the regular council meeting for the city of Ellsworth. It is February 26, 2024. Say pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item tonight is our consent agenda. It includes the water and sewer termination request and the approval of the February 12th city council meeting minutes.
Do we have any termination requests?
Yeah, we want.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the February 12th city council minutes and the water sewer termination request.
All second with the addition of the executive sections to the minutes. And then because I meant to send over to her and I forgot, so 10 minutes ago.
All right, Councilor Hanson has made a motion. The Councilor Coates has seconded that motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the water termination request and the approval of the February 12th city council meeting minutes with the addition of the executive sessions. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next section is the petitions and delegations. For all comments, please state your full name and whether you're an Ellsworth City resident. All comments are limited to 5 minutes per subject unless city council has further questions. Would be anybody who'd like to approach the podium and make some public comments? Nobody? Sure, okay. All right, we move on to unfinished business, and our first item will be the Kirk and Michael update.
It's not here, I wanted to publish it.
Okay, did you want to make some comments about it or not really?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
The only thing that I would like to add is, the multi-use path is close to complete. I am submitting a change order with Kirk and Michael because I was, as you know, I've been concerned about the drainage between Jelinek Drive and Good Sam. So the change order is gonna include raising the sidewalk there and putting a culvert underneath to allow for better drainage.
I have a question on the change order. Is that at their expense?
That's something that I still need to work out.
I think it should be. They're the one that designed it and it's not working properly.
Yeah.
They either pay for it or we don't sign off on it.
Roger.
I'm tired of signing off on things that aren't completed as satisfactory, so everything has to be dotted, cross T's before we pay and finalize that.
Is that how you want me to approach that?
Yeah.
Council?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's their baby.
All right.
They did it, they take care of it.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions about the Kirk and Michael updates? Anything else, Dustin?
As far as I know, Mr. Chairman.
It looks good. I mean, I just drove by a few minutes ago. It looks great. Like, there's some drainage issues we need to get taken care of for sure. The insurance agent contract with Luke Sparta and the Copeland Insurance Agency. This is just an approval or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. Any questions about it, anybody?
It's just to memorialize the bid and it's not approving the contract for the insurance. Yeah, that's a separate discussion in the next month. I will present to you the quotes and you'll tell me which quote you want to go with and he'll present them to you. But at this point, it's just honoring him as our agent for the next 2 years.
So we need a motion for that?
I'm requesting.
Okay, I'll make a motion with, we had a going contract with Booth and Barker for our citywide insurance for this next 1 year. 2 years. 2 years.
One second.
Councilor Panizer has made a motion to approve the 2-year insurance contract with the city of Lucas Sparta and the Copeland Insurance Agency. Councilor Hanson has seconded that motion. Does anybody have any questions, concerns? Don? No? Nobody? Don? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We're gonna go ahead and approve that. All right, this big item of the night is the presentation by Brian Foster of BG Consultant. Brian, first of all, apologize. You were gonna come, I think in December and then in January and then last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we're glad you're here. Thank you for waiting.
No problem, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did bring another engineer with me, Kirk Provine, so he's here today to observe and might hold up a map for me. I've given this presentation several different times. I can be really windy, or I can be really abbreviated, or anywhere in between. I'm gonna start with trying to be abbreviated, just because there's a lot of information to go over tonight, with both water and a sewer report. As I go through this, if you guys have questions, if you want to stop me, I welcome that. That way I can address that question, then move on to the next topic. But, that's how I guess, plan to approach it. We'll see how it goes. So you guys contracted with us to provide a water and sewer report. There was also a GIS component where we took some of your existing GIS data and put that into a new program that you guys can utilize. We've handed that over to the city, and as far as I know, city staff is using that. So now you have GIS of your water and sewer lines, and you're able to use that. So that part of the scope is complete. I did make a bullet point agenda. I think you guys all have a copy of it. That's what I'm going to go through instead of the pages of the report. The potable water side, when we contracted this, the treatment plant and the raw water was outside of our scope. At the time, everybody felt like they had a good handle on that, so we just focused on the distribution system. Going through some of the stuff we look at, your average water loss was like 28.6%, which is on the high side. Normally you see 10 to 15%. When it gets, above 20, it definitely gets concerning. When it approaches 30, it gets alarming. So
That water loss, does that have anything to do with the golf course? Is it metered at the golf course?
it should be metered up.
Should we know that?
Yes, it is
Okay.
needed.
I didn't know for sure, but all the water out there was metered. Okay, very good.
Yeah, so your water loss is essentially whatever water is metered out of your wells, subtracting off whatever water you meter through your city connections. So that can be lost just by leaks. Some of that loss is at the plant when you're backwashing and stuff like that. Some of that happens. You can have inaccuracies in your meters if you have old meters, so water could be flowing through and not fully registering. That can be part of your water losses as well. The staff did not report a lot of water breaks, only about like 7 a year, if I remember right. But I think this winter, you guys had a rough winter, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Well, and just to, what I've found since being here, that's part of the reason for the valve maintenance. Like, just going around the school, we opened up one of the valve covers and it was coming up with water. So it's just a lot of little things, I think, that are also piling up and contributing to it. That we're doing some hydrant replacements. That's why I'm doing that. So, sorry.
Yeah, very few communities have over a 30% water loss. So you guys are starting to approach that, and that is concerning. The total length of your distribution system is about 30 miles. So you have a lot of pipe in the ground. We did not have a lot of good data on historic maps and stuff like that. We did find some historic maps online from some old fire insurance maps to try to figure out what the history of your water system is. We found that the system appeared to be started in 1886 when 32,000 feet of your water system was put in. That's 20% of your water system was put in. And then by 1928, a total of 48,000 feet, which is roughly 30% of your water system, was put in. And to my knowledge, and to the staff's knowledge, none of that has been replaced. And if so, very few pieces of it. You guys really haven't replaced any water lines. So we believe about 30% of your system is over 100 years old, which is, it's getting there. It's reached its end of its life. On your total system, about half of your system is 4-inch diameter water mains or smaller. Current standards for fire protection are 6-inch and larger. You just don't get a lot of fire flow out of a 4-inch line, especially some of the cast iron ones that have some tuberculation on the inside of them. The 4-inch starts to become 3-inch or smaller because of all the incrustation on the inside, and it's just not a very smooth pipe, not a very efficient pipe. So we didn't do any flow testing, but if we did, I'm assuming when we open up fire hydrants on 4-inch mains, you guys would get less than 500 gallons per minute, which is not adequate for current fire codes. So with all that being said, When I talked to the previous city administrator, when we first started this, the plan was to budget for about a $2 million project. That's what he indicated with your rate study, that's what you guys could afford for the water system. So we looked at what a $2 million water project might look like. Excuse me. We came up with a phase one, and in looking at that, after talking with current city staff and the current city administrator, we feel like probably the best place to spend that would be to replace the raw water main coming from your wells. It's of unknown age, which means that it's probably pretty old. It is cast iron, it's a 10-inch cast iron main. If that line goes down, you only have what's left in your tanks to get through. So that is probably your most critical piece of infrastructure.
Okay, the question to that is, we are also have access to post-rock water, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so if we would lose everything, we go to post-rock water, would that get us through a situation where?
yeah, and I'm trying to remember what the connection was, and how much it could flow, but I don't remember it being significant. I don't remember it being able to handle all of your water. But there's another issue with Post Rock. Post Rock has a different type of chlorination than you guys have. And when you mix those two waters together, it essentially drops the chlorination down to 0, which is outside of regulations. So you'd have to flush all your system, all your water tanks to get the Post Rock water into your system. And by that time, you might have repaired the leak.
Yeah, so. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
So we looked at that as a phase one. We also looked at just identifying something as a phase two to maybe start the process of replacing some of the water lines in the oldest part of town. We came up with replacing about 6,000 feet of that pre-1928 water lines. And the cost for that was about 1.65 million. And what that basically did, and I have a map here. So this is the phase two. So the raw water line, we have a map for that one as well, but I think everybody knows what that one is. So this would be kind of like phase two if you wanted to do more than the raw water line. And this was just taking an attempt to replace old diameter mains that are smaller, and also kind of creating a loop around the downtown to increase fire flow. That's all that went into that. We didn't really have a lot of data on where the breaks are happening and stuff like that. So that was kind of our first attempt at phasing a potential water line project. So with that, just to give you guys numbers, I'm not proposing you guys have to go out and do this project tomorrow. But to replace all of the pre-1928, in addition to the raw water line and in addition to that phase one I just talked about, it was nearing $12.5 million just to replace 30% of your system. So if you add those together, you're at like $16 million for replacing the raw water line and all the stuff before 1928. That's just some information for you to have as you're thinking about planning and prioritizing. That doesn't include the other 70% of your system that we don't have a lot of data on how old it is, but just the way the town grew, it probably is, you know, in that 70 to 80 year range or.
You have any good news?
We'll get to the funding here in a little bit. So that's kind of where we're at with the water system. That's what our report is stated. You can use this report to go after some funding, and we'll talk a little bit more about funding here at the end. Any questions on the water system?
What was the cost of phase one again?
Phase one was 1.93 million.
So in other words, if our lines from our wells would go down, we have enough water supply for the city for 2 days.
approximately.
That would be crucial.
And that's if you don't want a fire. And-
Yes.
Yeah. At the time of year, yeah.
Yeah, so
Phase one is a pretty important part. Yes.
that's what that's what your city staff brought to us when we were talking about, you know, their concerns were that raw water line. And the raw water line's like 10,000 feet, if I remember right, 10,500 feet, so about 2 miles. So the sewer's a little bit more complicated. We have 2 different components of the sewer, what we looked at. We looked at the collection system, and then we looked at the treatment. I'm gonna start with the collection system. You have about 20 miles of sewer main in town that you guys maintain. To our knowledge, there hasn't been any significant improvements or rehabilitation in the history, or at least none that city staff knows of. It doesn't, so a lot of older sewer lines get rehabbed by having a pipe go inside a pipe. They can slip line the old pipes. None of that has been reported to have been done in your system. Something that, I don't know quite how to say it, but, 26% of your system, about 26,000 feet of your sewer main are 6-inch in diameter or smaller. The standard is 8-inch. That's been the standard for years. I've done a lot of projects through a lot of communities. And, I'm not trying to say this to say anything about it, but this is probably the most under-designed or under-constructed system that I have experienced. A 6-inch diameter main is very, very difficult to get equipment into, to unclog stuff. It's just not adequate, it's just not the standard, and it was probably built 100 years ago or more when there wasn't standards. But even a lot of the systems that I work in now that have older systems, their pipes are still 8 inches or bigger. So that's definitely something concerning. Something else concerning is that you don't have the normal amount of access points, manholes, in your sewer collection system, which makes maintenance very, very difficult, if not impossible. There are several locations, in fact, we identified 35 locations that need a manhole, that currently there's not one, or if there is one, nobody knows about it, but it's paved over. There's lines that have thousands, like 1,000 feet long with no manhole between that. And sewer cleaning equipment, well, the standard right now is about 400 feet. If you get much over 400 feet, you don't really have enough equipment to run a sewer cleaning jetter up or something like that. So there's definitely some places that need manholes. You have lines coming together where there's no access point, no manhole. And so, you know, cleaning and maintenance equipment can't turn the corners very easily. So there's definitely some concern on your collection system. So the next step on the collection system would be to televise your system. That's very expensive to do. If we did your entire system, it'd cost several $100,000s to have somebody come in and camera your entire system to really get a true assessment of the condition. But we know that those 6-inch diameter mains need to be replaced. They can't be just slip line. They need to be either replaced. They can do it in a couple different ways. You can do the old fashioned method of just digging them up and putting a new pipe down. And there's also a method of pipe bursting where you can open up a small piece and they can pull an 8-inch pipe through and actually it will push out and expand. That can be done in some cases, not all cases. We just kind of have to see what all other utilities are around it. There's lots of things that go into that. There's a couple options there for replacing. The rest of your sewer mains probably need some sort of rehab. A lot of these clay pipes, they break over time. And currently, you know, the proposed method is to come in and do a slip line where they put a line in and expands out and it hardens and it's a structural fix of that sewer. All of that being said, there is one spot that city staff identified that there's a 12-inch line that is crossing the railroad right here on the downtown that they said is in bad shape. I haven't seen any camera footage of it, but they know that there's portions of it collapsed and that needs replacing. Replacing anything under a railroad is expensive and time consuming. And that's one of your main lines that has, carries the flow down to your main lift station too. So if that were to totally collapse, you'd have to somehow figure out how to bypass pump over under the railroad. So, that probably needs addressed probably before the rest of this stuff does, if you're not having significant problems.
And I am working on getting the cameras done on those two. Because no one will touch it unless I get camera footage on both of these.
You guys have several lift stations in town. There's one lift station that serves the prison that is in pretty bad shape. It was, I think, put in 1987, hasn't had a lot of replacement or maintenance done, well, normal maintenance, but not any improvements, I guess, since then. And I know that staff has a lot of problems with it clogging up and having to go out there, and it's a time consuming thing. It takes a lot of staff time and probably inopportune hours to go out there and make sure that it's pumping correctly. Some of that is due to the design of the lift station. Some of it's due to probably the type of waste that you have coming in there. Prisons are notorious for having things that aren't supposed to be in the sewer, so.
Isn't there a shredder or disposal on that line?
There is,
Okay.
there is.
And they just replaced it in the last couple of months.
Okay.
Because of issues we were having.
Yeah, and I can get into this further, but the type of pump station you have is a vacuum primed lift station where the pumps are up top and there's a pipe down below and it pulls the water up. And that there's a vacuum on that first 10 feet or so. And if you ever lose prime on a vacuum, it doesn't work. And if you get little particles clogged in the thing, that's where you have a lot of the problems. There's other types of lift stations that you can put submersible stations in that, you know, the pumps sit down in the water. Some aren't, you can get different types of impellers that are less prone to clogging depending on what kind of waste you're doing. So, we put some cost to your sewer system. We came up with about $10 million to do the 6-inch and smaller lines. About $400,000 to replace the prison lift station. And then to rehab the rest of the lines, which would include slip lining and doing some manhole repairs and stuff like that. 11.9, so total for the collection system was $22.3 million. Again, not saying you have to do all that tomorrow, but just to kind of let you know where you're at. All right. Wastewater collection. This is probably one of your more immediate needs, if I was to prioritize them. You will get a new permit issued this year. You're currently not meeting your current permit with the discharge. The effluent, the quality of the effluent is currently not meeting your current permit limits. Your new permit will likely have more limits on it, especially to do with nitrogen and phosphorus. This has become a nationwide issue. And nitrogen and phosphorus are very difficult to remove in a lagoon setting. And the state and EPA have placed priority on trying to resolve that. Because nitrogen and phosphorus gets in the streams and it gets into the rivers and gets into the lakes, and that's essentially what causes your algae and some of those other blooms that are happening. More emphasis is being placed on it. About the only way you can remove nitrogen and phosphorus is with a mechanical treatment plant, a full mechanical treatment plant, which is very expensive to operate, takes a high level staff to operate. And it's not something we would recommend for a community your size. The other option would be to go to a non-discharging facility, which works off of a water balance, and you can either, there's several different ways you can get rid of water without putting it into a stream. You can let it soak into the ground in certain instances. You can let it evaporate up into the air, or you can also irrigate it. And as long as it's not running off, you're able to irrigate with it. So a couple of the options that we looked at were expanding your lagoons and making, one option would be to make your lagoons into a treatment facility where the effluent would go into a constructed wetlands. And a constructed wetlands would work off of seepage and evaporation, also with, aquatic vegetation, pulling in water as well. That can take quite a bit of land. It would probably in this area convert cropland into a wetland type system. I think there's a better option. I think irrigation is a better option. I think you have some availability of some cropland that could benefit from some irrigation. Irrigation with wastewater, you're currently doing it now with golf course. When you irrigate with crops, well, when you're irrigating on your golf course, you have to put a little bit of chlorine in it when public is, around it walking on. But when you're on cropland, you don't, as long as it's not running off. Some of the rules with cropland would be, you can't grow crops for direct human consumption. And what that means is like stuff you take to your farmer's market, like strawberries, stuff like that. Growing wheat, soybeans, stuff that gets processed, perfectly fine. Corn would be okay as long as you don't take your sweet corn to the farmer's market. The corn that goes to feed or something like that would be fine. Grassland is some of the best type of crop to have for irrigation for wastewater anyway, because it has some of the highest uptake of water, and you can essentially irrigate it all season, where certain crops you only want to irrigate at certain times. So having grassland where people might get an extra cutting of hay or something. So there could be some benefit there. We could get more into all the rules with irrigation, but essentially we're looking for somewhat flat land that doesn't have a lot of runoff potential. Closer to the lagoons is better type stuff. So, but there definitely could be some benefit both from the city side and from a landowner or the city wanted to purchase land and, sell the crops or something like that, or cash rent. There's all kinds of different options there. But for this area, I would recommend the irrigation option. We looked at a couple different design parameters when we were looking at expanding your lagoon. Your current permit for your wastewater treatment facility is for 5,000 people, which is a little bit higher than what you guys currently have. Population I was with is around 3,000 if you include prison. I don't know why your current limit or your current permit was permitted that high. It obviously, currently it can't handle that, even the 3,000 population, because it's exceeding limits. But in speaking with Dustin right now, I kept it the same at 5,000 and gave you an option of what it would look like to have a facility that would handle that full flow, in case you guys ever expanded and you got some industry in or something like that would have a lot of water usage. So that's what we designed, or not designed, that's what we used for a cost estimate. If you guys want to look at that and scale that down, we could look at what that might look like with different options. I have a map of your current lagoon facility with some. So several things are kind of going along with your current lagoon. So right now you have a biolac facility here where all your wastewater comes in here, and that handles a lot. It's an aeration basin, is essentially what it is. So blowing air into that water to try to, stimulate the biological process. And then from there, it goes into this lagoon, and then pipes essentially go across here and here. So you kind of have a short circuiting, and you're not getting the full benefit of all this water in storage time. So a typical lagoon would have 120 days storage. A typical lagoon would go across, catty corner, so that you get that full effect of the water. Yours is, again, short circuiting right here. I've actually looked at one of the aerial photos, and you can see the green water on this side and brown water on that side. It just perfectly illustrates the short circuit. That's one of your problems. Another problem you have is you have a lot of sludge buildup in your lagoons. About 25% of your lagoons is sludge, so you're not getting that volume either. So everything that I'm proposing to do here would be to correct those deficiencies. We would desludge the lagoon. We'd have to apply that sludge somewhere, some adjacent land. And then we would also need to expand the lagoon if we were going to do an irrigation option. If we got rid of this, which this is it's a mechanical facility, it has blowers, it costs you about, I think, $3,500 a month in electric bills. And then, those components fail over time. If we went to an irrigation system where we essentially have no effluent requirements other than just meeting 120-day detention time, we can do that by building a new cell on the north end, getting rid of this berm, and then I would get rid of this berm, and you'd end up with 1, 2, 3 cells, and that would get you your full 120-day detention that meets the current KDHE requirements that you can irrigate straight out of there. If you're going to irrigate, though, you need to be able to store enough water to get through the winter time. So there's a requirement of having 4 months of storage so that you can, push this water into a cell, let it stack up over the winter. And then once spring hits and it's, conducive to irrigation, you can start drawing out of it. So that's what this cell would be. This cell would be like a 15-foot deep storage cell that would go on the back side of that. So that's kind of what we propose for a project. This project, including some random thoughts of how far a force main might be and some irrigation equipment on some land, we came up with about $10 million to do that project. There's a few other things that you have going on. Right here, you have a headworks facility that has it's a screw that get rid of, it's like a catch basin where it gets some of the stuff out of the sewer, the wastewater that you don't want in your lagoons. Basically a screening process. Currently, all that's out in the open. It tends to freeze in the wintertime. So in the wintertime, your staff has to bypass it, so you're not really using it. They have a manual screen out there that they have to go out once a day or however often, use a rake and rake out, and you're not getting as good of removal from that. I understand, and I didn't look at any of this, but I understand there was a design at one point to put a building over that networks and heat that, but the cost came in too high or something, and it wasn't pursued. Right now with this project, I'm not proposing to do, I didn't put any cost, I guess, into a building on that site. That's something that we could look at if you guys are interested in it. But when we take out this biolac and we go with a cell, the screening becomes a little bit less important. It's still good to have, and I still would definitely, while you have it, use it. But water that goes into these lagoons is essentially going into a big pond, and whatever you don't screen is going to go into that big pond. It's going to take a long time for whatever you don't screen to build up enough to where you're going to have to remove it out of that pond. So if the costs were not favorable then and they're not favorable now, maybe we just keep bypassing it in the winter. But again, that's something that we can look at and explore as more options. But for now, I didn't include it. I guess that's the point, is it's not included in that cost. So, kind of the next steps on this project, and if you want. Kind of the next steps to move forward with a treatment type project would be to, start to look at this a little bit closer. Start to look at some potential sites for irrigation. I haven't contacted any landowners, that's not, I'm definitely willing to, but I didn't want to, this is the first step, I guess. We would need probably about a half section altogether, and that's if we have the full 5,000 population equivalent. If we wanted to start out smaller, and then if we saw the need for more irrigation, if the town agreed, then you could add more irrigation later. So that definitely could be a thought process too. We would want to definitely do some geology where we're proposing some of these new lagoons to make sure that we don't have any surprises before we move forward with anything. There would probably need to be some discussions with the landowner, see what kind of, what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. Whenever we acquire land for any type of a project that's funding, there's some rules that you have to go through, and I can visit with Dustin about those. There's a Uniform Relocation Act that I would recommend you guys follow if you visit with any landowners. So that's kind of the next step to move that project forward. Also acquiring funding, which is another topic that I wanted to hit on today. You have several different options for funding right now. KDHE, which is the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, through the EPA has a loan program. It's actually pretty attractive for your lagoon project because they offer up to 30% or $1 million of principal forgiveness for converting a lagoon into a non-destruction lagoon, which your project is qualifies for. We submitted a pre-application on this last year. You guys were, I guess, notified that you could move forward with a full application, but we didn't at the time. But it would stand to reason that you guys would be eligible for that again if you reapply this year. They have a 20-year, a 30-year, and a 40-year, I believe they can go to 40-year, loan that you can get for the rest of the funding. Right now, the interest rates are like at around 2.5, so they're subsidized right now for what the current market is. So that's kind of the KDHE one, and again, I can give a lot more information on these if you want me to. But another program is USDA, the Department of Ag has a program through rural development, which it's a loan program, but it also has a grant component. Their loans are typically for 40 years, which I would have no problem with this type of a project being a 40-year loan because that earthwork is going to last years, exceed the life of the loan. And what USDA does is they also have an interest rate around 2.5 to 3%. But what they do is they provide a grant based on what your user rate is. And they want to keep your user rate at an affordable level, what they call affordable. And their matrix is to look at like communities in the area that have maybe recently done projects and get your user rate into a comparable user rate with theirs. Right now, that number is around $47 to $55 a month for a typical residential user. So what that means is if you can do a project and it stays below that amount, you won't get any grant. If you do a larger project, for instance, if you tack on the collection system and want to do the collection system and the treatment system all at one time, then that would drive your rate to, and I'm making up numbers here, that would drive your rate up to $65. They might give you so much grant to pull that rate down to $55, if that makes sense. So there could be some advantages of lumping projects together, I guess, is what I'm saying. Now, water and sewer, you always have to keep totally separate. You have to get a loan for water, you have to get a loan for sewer. You can't do a single project with one. the Kansas Water Office recently came out with a very attractive grant that I think everybody in the state applied for. And Dustin and I, well, Dustin put in a couple applications for you guys that we're hoping to hear from at the first of the year. But the Kansas Water Office is 100% grant. They have two different categories. They have a project planning category, and then they have which normally handles studies and design and things like that. Then they have a projects section, which handles the construction side of things. There's a whole bunch of information on it. I think the planning portion was limited to $1 million. The projects was limited to $5 million. If I remember right, is that what you remember?
Around there.
The Kansas Water Office is prioritizing communities of populations of 2,000 or less, which you guys are above that. But hopefully that seeing the need and some of that kind of stuff, it might help. They do prioritize projects with early start dates, so there is kind of that shovel-ready discussion where if somebody has a design and ready to go, they might get funding over somebody that doesn't know how they're moving to. It prioritizes conservation and climate change resiliency type stuff, which not on this topic, but I know Dustin put in something for the flood control too. So some of those things might get considered. And it does consider community factors like social economics, need, public health, those types of things. So that's a Kansas Water Office, brand new. It's a 5-year program, or at least that's what the state has allocated for it so far. We heard there's gonna be several rounds this year, but the first round was the last quarter. I heard that there is a lot more need than what they had dollars for, so we'll see how we rank. And then, of course, there's all different kinds of money right now that some of it becomes available very, very quickly through the Infrastructure Act. Dustin might have even more information than I do on some of these different types of funding through the Infrastructure Act. But what I can say is typically they're going to fund projects that are ready to go. And there could be some benefit in having some stuff either 30% designed or something like that, have some discussions with landowners and know that you're going there, have some of that done before. And then you can have the availability to jump on a grant fund or something like that if it becomes available. So that's kind of that's my presentation. Went over quite a bit there. Any questions?
How long is it gonna take to do a project like this, like the water line from out the wells to the city?
I always say, just in general, a project is 3 years, it takes a year to do planning, which is what we're done with that year one. A year to design it and a year to construct it. Different projects of different scope may last a little longer. I mean, if you told me to, like the raw water line, it's fairly straightforward, fairly simple. You might be able to, if you told me to start tomorrow, I could maybe have the design done in 6 months. And then have the contractor on board in another 6 months by the time you go through permitting and all that kind of stuff. A project like the wastewater one might take a little bit longer because you're gonna start talking to landowners and all those things take a little bit longer.
So like when the changeover from the old line to the new line, are you gonna disrupt service like for a day or two, or how does that work?
So with water, we always build the new water line while the old water line's in service. And then there's gonna be a switch over, the one day where you coordinate with city staff, get all the tanks full and everything like that. And there's an 8-hour window where you switch over.
But in your opinion, Brian, the wastewater treatment is immediate, like that would be our.
You're gonna get a new permit this year. And I don't know if you've already gotten a draft or not, of it, but that permit will probably have requirements on it that you address the nitrogen and phosphorus, which your current system cannot address.
So is that more important than the water line for right now? What's more important? Should we focus on first of all?
You got a lot of problems.
Put me on the spot. In your professional opinion, of what you've seen that we have, where would you recommend we start? That's what we hire you for.
Yeah, I would start with the wastewater treatment project, and I would, now this might be a bit of a stretch, but you might include that $200,000 to CCTV your collection system in that first sewer project. That way you really know the condition of your collection system. And then that might change some of your thoughts and priorities. There's nothing that says you can't do projects concurrently either. All three of these projects could literally be done parallel if you wanted to. It all comes down to user rates and
Yeah, paying for it.
right. And, I haven't, your staff didn't say they've had breaks on the raw water main. Maybe it's something we don't want to talk about too much. But I know the state's gonna make you do something with your treatment.
That's pretty one answers that question.
Yeah. But, the raw water main in the grand scheme of things, could be something that you could do that could be affordable to add, because I guess, well, I don't know how your rates are set up. I don't know, you had a consultant come in and do some, planning with your water rates. And I believe there was room for a water project and a sewer project. Now, the sewer project that I'm proposing is a lot higher than probably he accounted
It's
for.
2 million for each, for the water rates, remember the water rate study I presented to you last year? That was the study he's referencing. It was for $2 million for a water project and $2 million for a wastewater project.
So on the water side, the raw water line we're projecting it to be under 2 million. So, that could be already funded through your current water rates. The sewer project, I feel like has a higher potential to get some grant money. We've already more or less got $1 million worth of loan forgiveness from KDHE if we would have applied for it. I feel like that is,
That's a biggie.
what's that?
That's a biggie, getting $1 million loan.
Yeah, and I don't want to say guaranteed, but you guys fit the category. You ranked high enough on the priority points to get the money last year. Of course, it all depends on who applies this year, but it stands to reason you have a good chance of receiving that again next year. So then that, 10 million becomes 9 million. And then, you look at, maybe some other funding opportunities come up, that we can apply for even during the design, if you were to move forward with it, and see what happens. You could always take that, and I don't know if the $2 million was amortized over a 20-year or longer, but, you could maybe amortize that for 40 years instead of 20, if that is the case. And there's a lot of things that goes on in that. I do have to make a disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor. But there's some rules that I have to abide by giving financial advice.
Ryan.
With the permit for that, how long do they last? Is it like a 2 year, 1 year, or is it a long?
It's more than 2 years. I wanna say 4 or longer, but once you go to a non-discharging facility, there's no more effluent requirements. You're not testing your water anymore because you're not putting it in a creek. There's very few things that they can make you do.
Yeah. Now, what if we, instead of saying it's 5,000, if it was down to like 4, would ours maybe pass for a while or not?
No, so, yeah, so currently your current system has a permit for 5,000 people. roughly 3,000 people are running into it, and it's not meeting, there's certain, contaminants that are tested, and you're above it. So, even at 3,000 people. But what I was saying is, we could, the facility I proposed with those lagoons, we could make those lagoons smaller, but then it would only handle 4,000, 3,000, or however small. I would recommend to go to 3,000.
We're right there.
Yeah. You want some buffer, especially on a non-discharging, because you're all trying to get that water balance. But, you know, you overbuild it, and then you just spend a lot of money that you're not using.
That'd be a lot, 2,000 more people in town, that'd be
Yeah.
pretty wild.
You guys talk to each other.
Yeah, I mean, 100, yeah, would be a lot.
These
They
are-
add to the town.
Unless we get another prison.
But, and I will say though, that building it for 5,000 now versus building it for, let's just say 4,000, and then in 10 years from now, having to build it for 5,000
Yeah.
would be, I would totally rearrange how I would do it if I built it for 4,000. And so it's not a one-to-one add-on. if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a huge factor right there.
Yeah,
What do you calculate for? If you get it wrong, you're kind of going back to the drawing board,
on,
your population, you know what I mean?
right,
Yeah.
so if we designed it for 4,000 and you wanted me to save costs,
Right.
which would be the reason to design it for 4,000, I would reconfigure those lagoons to be the less earthwork and everything, and then if you had to go up to 5,000 later, you wouldn't go back to that design because I've already screwed it up. If that makes sense.
Any other questions for Brian? These are great questions. Anybody else?
I'm willing to do whatever you guys, if you guys want to have a work session sometime, however you guys want to proceed, I'm at your disposal.
Very good presentation,
Yeah,
very
thank
good.
Sorry about my throat. Should have brought a water.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, where do you want me to go with this point?
I personally feel like I need time to digest all this. For everybody.
Yeah.
For a lot of info as.
Yeah. It's something like $50 million.
Yeah. Next time. Giant checks.
Well, if you guys want to process it, if you want me to come back and answer more questions, if you want me to give a different presentation on, some of the more funding opportunities.
If we're gonna move on this, we need to start down, right? In order to get the grants for next year.
I don't want to say that. I mean, there's always going to be opportunities for
Down the
funding.
road.
However, you may, and I'm not, I don't want to mislead you, because I just don't know what Congress is going to do next. Right now, a lot of the funding is on continuing resolution till I think March 1st. And so I should say if, not after, if Congress ever passes a budget, then different funding opportunities might come up. I have no idea what the requirements of those or the deadlines are gonna be on them, so.
Things only go up in price, they don't.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I mean, inflation, has really hit hard. The construction industry is definitely inflating higher than the consumer price index. We're seeing, just nobody wants to work construction. So, the guys with the shovels and stuff like that are having to pay them a lot more than just the consumer price index increase. So you're always gonna see a higher increase probably than what your 2.5% in loan interest is.
A lot of factors. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you so much.
All right, onward to new business. We got the discussion and decision from.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Well,
You're good, yeah.
anybody else wanna get hot in here? Anybody else wanna? Okay. Discussion decision regarding pile construction proposal. So Dustin, you wanna give us a little background here?
Yes, sir. David, if you want to come up.
Yeah.
And, Bill, I got a call, as it states, on January 19th. We called interested in developing, housing in Ellsworth, specifically 18 to 30-year-olds. And so, I had a meet with Stacy, myself and Delvin, to just go over, discuss his proposal. He also went to, the planning commission, which Bill Evans is here. Also, they actually went, took a field trip out to examine some of his projects in McPherson, and, out of all the, potential discussions we had 3 or 4 lots that I had in mind. Tomulpa Edition 2 is the one that is shovel ready for a project, and it's already currently the one that is zoned R2 and ready for residential development. In our discussions and trying to balance the feedback out of the neighborhood, I had two, I asked him in his proposal to do 2 lots for parks and 6 for housing. And I guess I'll let you take it from here, good sir.
Yeah, like back on the 19th, called Dustin, came over, looked at the community. I'm at the point in my life, I've been in construction 30-some years, commercial, lots of big projects, and I've kind of slowed down and started building for myself these last 5 years. And what I've noticed is these small communities try to stay within about an hour of McPherson and have a real need for housing. There's several factors that the Kansas Economic Trends puts out things. There's a real estate trend as well. You look at communities, from 1,500 to about 4,000, maybe 5,000, have shown a real decline in their population of 18 to 30-year-olds. Some communities have got to the point where it's 50% in the last 10 years in those communities. I basically told them that you needed to do something 10 years ago. It's probably too late to recover your town. I've identified there's probably 5 or 6 communities within about an hour of McPherson that I've been dealing with. Some have projects in them, some we're finishing up projects in, some I'm talking to about projects. And Ellsworth fits that niche that I'm trying to find, where we can get affordable housing that's not government housing, that's actually market rate affordable, in a community that needs it, with the decline in the 18 to 30-year-olds. And it also, the properties that I'm building also, the older generations, like that maybe live in a multi-level home before they go to assisted living, could move into a single-story slab on grade residence, gives them out of something stairs before they have to go to assisted living. Well, guess what? Then that opens up a house for sale for another family here in town. So I've been pretty successful everywhere I've gone with these models. Some communities basically, I've told them that I probably won't do anything without any grant or NIH funding. I've been contacted by several as well because they kind of found out what I've done. Ellsworth doesn't fit that mean. I'm willing to put an investment in here. I would probably like to phase it if that works out, where I put in maybe 6 units initially and see how it goes. And if it does go, then take that other portion and go after some government money as well, and maybe add another 12 to 13, 14, whatever ends up working out. I ended up, Sterling's a little bit bigger than Ellsworth. I ended up over there. The guy called me over. We had a meeting, went through. I was really hesitant. I put in 10 units over there in Sterling. I was thinking, oh man, how long is it going to take to rent? They were rented before we were done, pre-leased. Everyone's, well, there's college kids. Well, we had no college kids initially. I think we have 18 units over there now. As soon as I finished that, I put in another 8. I think Ellsworth is kind of similar in that community, size-wise, job-wise, school-wise, real estate-wise. So have you guys had a chance to review the site plan? Is it in that packet? Okay. As you can see from feedback and from other meetings we've had and emails and other things, that there was a request to, maybe park some of that. What I'm needing, I guess, from the city council is, is this something that we can continue to work on and get approved? Or is this gonna be, is this a no-go? I guess we're kind of at that point. I've got numbers run, there's numbers I don't have, which are basically land and a few other utility things and stuff. So, you know, what I need, I guess, is a decision from the city. Is this something that we want to move forward on, consider, this project?
One thing I noticed on the diagram that I like is that you have off-street parking.
Yeah,
They will actually pull in on parking for their homes.
right, that is a requirement. Basically, code is 1.5 stalls per apartment. So if you look, we're actually, 5, so we're a little bit over. There's actually,
And are you responsible for the maintenance of those buildings?
yes,
They like new carpeting, new paint, make sure they look nice all the time.
all right, I own, everything I build right now, I own. I'm not building these to sell. I'm building to own, rent. I've got 2 sons in their mid-20s that are doing the same thing with me right now. So when I'm done, they're gonna have them.
There's one thing that's kind of frustrating, and I just want to bring it up so everybody's on board. Up the street from me, we have a duplex. Right now in front of the duplex, there's a car up on jacks, they're replacing tires. They're laying all over the front yard, plus there's 2 more vehicles right in the grass, parked in the front yard. I don't want to see something like that come in and have that stuff going.
Well,
Does that make sense?
they went over and looked at my property.
Planning Commission did go over and Mayor, Mr. Mayor, if you're okay with it, may I ask, may I request Bill Evans to come
Is
up?
there storm shelter available?
These do not have storm shelters in them. I mean, what I've got designed.
Bill, can you come up and give?
Folks, my name is Bill Evans and I have the pleasure of serving on the Ellsworth Planning Commission. And on Sunday, January 11th, myself, Rick Garrett and Bill Mell took a trip down to visit Mr. Pyle's buildings down in McPherson at the McPherson units. And we thought at the meeting, we talked about some problems we had before with some units out south here, that the city had problems with. And we thought that it would be a good idea to go and to investigate and take a look and see what Mr. Pyle builds, the quality of the units and everything. We got down there and I'm sorry, I can't remember. Angie, we met with her. And she took us in her apartment and showed us the quality of the buildings and the materials. I saw the materials that was used and everything, and that was good quality materials. The units are built very well, and we were impressed by the way that the parking lot was set up with drainage and the way it was set up for parking. So basically, that's what we went down for. And our overall opinion, you guys, was that it was good quality work. And I think this is something that we could use in Ellsworth. That is our understanding and our opinion. So,
everybody on the planning commission board was on board with it and liked the idea? All three of you?
I've talked to Brian Falk runs it and talked to him and told him our opinion and everything. And he said, well, that's good to go then. We're okay with it too.
Okay.
So, yes, everybody on the commission was for it. So we appreciate that.
The official ruling on the last planning commission meeting was it was contingent recommended approval based on their trip.
What are you asking the city for as far as acquiring the ground?
That's gonna come down to the numbers thing. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. That's what I don't have. I've gone into cities where I've been given land and then I bought land after that and kept building. I've gone into cities and bought land. So, it's whatever. I prefer to keep my costs down. I'm trying to keep these in the 720 for 2 bedrooms to 550 to 600 for a 1 bedroom. In order to do that, you gotta keep your costs down.
Okay.
I can control a lot of that because I'm the builder, but there's other intangibles that I can't.
Would you rather buy the ground or would you rather have the city give the ground and you be responsible for all the utilities on the ground. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
What,
either way, whatever site utilities I would put on there, I would be responsible for, up to the taps. I mean, that's just how it is, no matter where you
so
go.
sewer, electric, gas.
Right, everything is on there, and I've already talked to the electric, and that was kind of a little bit of a shock, but it was high
Mhm.
to get for all those units, but of course, I'm gonna phase it, would be my plan. Did have a little concern when, it's not great for a developer to come after hearing a, water and sewer study. Kind of started.
That's everywhere.
Yeah, it is, and there's been other communities that are going after some of the same grants. I've been in meetings and I've heard them going after for their water system and their, sewer systems as well. They're going after grant money to get those things, and it's the communities this size, it just is. They're older communities, they're well established. But in order to survive, you gotta, what I figured out is that 18 to 30-year-old range, if you can keep those kids around, then all of a sudden they're having kids or kids in the school, then they're buying a house, or maybe they're buying a house from somebody who's gonna build a house. And you don't have to be.
So I've got a total of 7 grant applications currently submitted for water, sewer, and fire.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing is, I noticed there's an arc area. Did the Kiwanis have some interest in putting up arc?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they seemed interested when I talked to them.
Okay,
They can't move forward on anything until I know exactly what you want to do.
I just
I'm
want
not, I'm just gonna say I'm not for the city selling the ground. The people I've talked, cause I live kind of down in that. And everybody I've talked to really doesn't want an apartment complex on the west side. That's just what I've gathered, so I'm not gonna vote for us selling the ground to you or giving it to you. I'd rather see it. It's been owned forever. It's been an open lot. There was ball fields on it at one time. I don't know why they got rid of those, but I think it could be some kind of a park or something, but like my kid, I'm not gonna have my kid go play over there at an apartment complex where you don't know anybody that lives there. I mean, I wouldn't send my kids there to play. I think a lot of people would. That's just what I think. So Darcy, what are your thoughts on it? She lived right, so.
you live right across the street.
I do,
Yeah.
my one concern, and the last time when Stacy brought the guy in here, my concern is property taxes, because we bought our house where we bought our house so we could live and live. So I don't want something coming in where my property taxes go sky high, I can't sell my house, or my property taxes go tanking and I can't sell my house. I mean, that is a true concern, and I think if you poll the neighbors,
Okay.
a lot of the neighbors, they're gonna have the same concerns. People live in our neighborhood because they can, I mean, my property taxes are high enough as they are. I don't live in a, $200,000 home, but my property taxes are high. So I think that is a big concern. It's property
I think what we're building, and maybe you can attest to that, is similar to the stuff that's over there, it's just new.
Apartment complexes over there.
Pardon?
There's not very many apartment complex deals over there.
No, if there's any, is there?
There's not.
We just don't really have any.
Yeah. I just don't, I like that spot for that. That many people jammed right there in a block right there, I don't know. I mean, most of the time, and the city's not selling the ground, most of the time you're buying it from whoever. I'm against us selling that block. I think it can be used down the road, get rid of it's gone, so.
Dustin, you've only looked at this property, no other property?
Well, it's the only one that I have shovel ready.
Okay.
I've got the potential. for-
Everything else is probably a year,
Yeah.
year and a half plus else, because you're talking about site utilities that have to be.
The other downward pressure, because I'm hearing it from other groups of clients too, our area employers, Casco. There's Casco, there's prison, there's the school district, there's the Carico. Their big gripe and complaint is there is no housing. And as he says, I've got to jump through hoops. I got 4 properties that I'm after. Like for instance, where the Prairie Development Corp has on the west side, we have to negotiate who's gonna build the roads and infrastructure out there. The church hasn't built anything there either. So we got, the other one is over by where, I did talk to Jessica Meckler. At that Good Sam, she's willing to part with some of that land and maybe get a project together to coincide with the, commercial project out there, but either way, we don't have utilities out there. So either way, we're gonna spend money to get utilities out there to get either one of these working. And so the Homolka addition from the point of view of area employers, because right now everyone's commuting into them, minus 2 people that can get jobs here. And you're gonna see it in a 5 to 10 year trajectory where they're gonna start moving out if we don't have housing here either.
And I agree with that 100%, but I just think this is not a good spot for a big apartment complex. It's right there. I just don't see that. I think it could go out by the hospital, put it out there where nobody's really living. I mean, it's established, you're building this right in the middle of basically town, the west side of town. So I just don't like it. I don't think there's gonna be, I just
So
don't.
is there utilities on that?
Utilities is
Power right there, but they're gonna have, I don't know what's water and sewer.
water and sewer is directly there, whereas all these other locations, I will have to extend it or extend roads or something like that to all these other potential locations. I can get it done. I'm gonna work with Stacy on getting these done. It's just gonna take time.
Patrick wants to speak. Come on up, Patrick.
I just had a couple maybe relevant thoughts.
David Patrick, City Attorney Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple things legally that came to mind. One is, that property's been R2. I think Jonathan Mitchell had a duplex proposal way back when that never happened. And I think the council should consider either, its current zoning is correct for what he's proposing. So if you don't want to do something like that, you should consider just saying it's a park from now on, or at least.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Which is their option.
It'd be a point.
If you did try and develop it with this developer or somebody else, it just reminds me of the Elizabeth Street projects where if you did give it or get it to a developer for less than market rate, you'd want to put restrictions in there to make sure it got developed the way you are imagining it. You don't want to give it to somebody and then not have any, if it doesn't ever, for example, if they never build on it because he has other places to build, you want to get it back. That's what they did in Elizabeth Street on those Godiva homes. So just a couple things for possible thought.
First right of refusal.
Well, they had a covenant in there that said, and it was a little bit different, but they were free lots for stick-built, single-family residences, and it was to prevent someone from sitting on a lot at that time. Your situation's slightly different, but I think the main thing would be like, you wouldn't wanna give a developer a deal and then 10 years later it never gets built and it's held on to.
Yeah.
But that's, I think if they wanna go that direction.
Let me ask you, Stacy, do you have any input that you wanted to add? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're pretty close to the whole situation.
I would just echo what Dustin said, the pressures that we're seeing for our community growth and from our employers in particular have to do with housing. And so while this might not be the ideal location, and I maybe wouldn't argue that, it's the most available and ready one we have to solve the problem right now.
And I agree that but that's what we always do, is we just jump into stuff and then it goes to shit, and because it's easy, let's do it. Why? No, that's why I'm like, no.
Can we take a time?
I think we should not. So-
Yeah, I'm different communities.
Within a month, could we have this conversation and make a final decision? Is that, I don't like to kick things down the road, but it does sound like we gotta hash it out a little bit, yeah. We gotta do a little better when we have a little bit more time.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
I spent some time on other things
Right.
on this and
Yeah,
with plans and other things, so
right.
I'll just put it on hold. I'm not gonna push anything forward or
Right.
anything else on it. I'll just wait
We done some
for you guys.
And I would like to see us like property tax
Assessment.
assessment
Yeah.
around some of the ones that you've gotten built. I just would like to see that. Cause like the property taxes in Ellsworth, they're high as is.
Yeah.
So something, if the city of Sterling can do, if we can get a hold of them, if you
Sure.
could,
The Sterling ones are on NRP. Are you familiar with the NRP is? It's a neighborhood revitalization program. I think Ellsworth has one, I believe. Basically I think Sterling ones are 10 years where it goes from like 90 to 80 to 70 to 60 to 50, 40 down. Property tax rebate for improving neighborhoods, basically to revitalize neighborhoods and stuff. I could get a hold of
or is
some.
there a town that we could get a hold of and just ask for?
Yes, Sterling, McPherson and Sterling.
Yeah, Rice County.
We could have Dustin do that.
I will tell you, we were told the same thing, and our property taxes out there with those houses has gone up tremendously. So even if they tell you they won't go up, ours have.
I think that's kind of across the board, though. I think that's all the way around.
Well, David, I would say Dustin was really impressed. I mean, he was at the very beginning of your craftsmanship and your professionalism and everything about you. So I'm sure I'll get back to you and do a little bit more background and we'll discuss it. And we'll have 2 more meetings within a month and we'll definitely get back to you.
Okay.
Give you some kind of firm answers.
All right, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, moving right along, that was the pile construction. All right, we got the case number, 2022-002705 East Fourth Street, Dustin. Give us a little background.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this off to Steve if you don't mind.
Yeah, come on, Steve. Go ahead. Ron, okay.
Well, this case got opened back in December of 22. And, at that time, Mr. Florin was contacted by, Dustin and also by, Delvin Pettenbrock. And the attempt at that point was to, they were gonna serve them with a notice of abatement of the property. Apparently, they were trying to refurbish the house. There was a fire. And after that, it was more or less abandoned. So, they were contacted a couple different times to try to get the property cleaned up. Long story short, that did not happen. We sent out some certified letters. I sent one back in April of last year, April 19th, and it was returned to us without being picked up. The property was then mitigated later on, and it was cleaned up to the tune of around $2,500 cost because weeds and whatever had grown up. So at this point, pursuant to the statute, we are petitioning the council to hold a hearing for the condemnation of the property. And so you got all the, I think, all the information there in front of you. Do you have any questions?
And your name?
Brian Florian.
Brian?
Yes.
Brian's the owner.
Yes.
Okay. You want to address this at the council?
Yes, I would like to. So I have been working on that place for quite a long time. We were working on going through court. John Casper was our lawyer at the time of the fire. Unfortunately, as you know, he had to retire, so we didn't get any farther. Part of the reason was the lawyer that the insurance company had, and I don't know who he had talked to, but I just know that there were individuals in the area that were saying things of it being ours. And I know that they were, at the time, they were employed by the city. So we were fighting with that. We couldn't find another lawyer at the time. I didn't have the money, so we've ended up losing that insurance case. The house is for sale. If anybody wants to buy it, they're welcome to.
Just walk back.
Yeah, I'll sell it. I'm tired of dealing with it. I'm tired of having to drive all the way over here to take care of it. I mean, I do the best I can. I know, yes, this last summer, yes, I did get behind on it. And I had talked with
Dylan a couple times about it. I know the one time I talked to him, I said, yes, I know it's getting overgrown. That was at the time when we were having all that rain, and you can't get down in that low area with the mower after a rain. There's just no way. And then, of course, it's one thing after another, my mower broke down. So I was fixing it. And yes, like I said, it got overwhelmed. I was heading over with the skid steer to get it knocked down, blew a tire, and I mean, not making excuses, but it was just one thing after another that hit me. And
In the best case scenario, what are you looking for to get this thing cleaned up? What do you want?
well, one thing that really aggravated me was after I had talked with him about getting over there and mowing it, I said, I've got somebody coming over to mow it. That very next day, I get a phone call from our neighbor that somebody's over there mowing. I said, yeah, I hired him to come over and mow. Well, it wasn't who I hired to come over and mow. That very next day, they hire somebody to go in there and take off with everything in the yard. So I've got 4 brand new tires that are gone. I've got tools that are missing. I've got all this stuff that's gone. Most of it I don't care about, but it was stuff that I had moved out and was stacking up and was working on getting over to haul stuff off.
For the miscommunication?
Most definitely.
Who did that and was the mowing that took stuff out of it?
I can't remember his name.
Is this something that we paid for to get this?
Yes.
Oh, it's somebody that we paid.
Yeah, that's where this bill comes from.
$2,500 bill.
Okay,
And that's one thing that really aggravates me. Is I did not receive a letter. I found out after the letter was returned, and this is my feeling, so bear with me. I feel like that letter was intentionally sent to the wrong address, because I given both of them my current address. I've been at this current address for over 2 years. I've received letters from them before, but now a certified letter, I don't get it. Before that, I received nothing. I talked to them on the phone. I spoke with both of them. I understand that, yes, I do get behind on keeping up with the mowing. I live in Wilson, I work in Hayes. You know, I work 6 days, well, 4 days a week, sometimes 6. So it's hard for me to get over here. Plus I've got, 3 kids that are in sports and doing things, life gets in the way of getting over here.
So you're saying
So-
the address that's on here is not the address that's on that letter? Do you have the letter, Steve?
I do, letter was sent to, P.O. Box 217.
No. That is not the right address.
Well, that-
1124th Street, that's what it's been for the past 2 years.
Well, that's the address that, we had on file. And according to the
I've received other letters from you guys about, hey, the yard is starting to get overgrown, need to get overgrown. And I get that, and I try and get over it as soon as I can to get it knocked back. And get it taken care of. I received letters about getting it cleaned up. We went over there, I cleaned out all the trees, I cleaned out as much as I could, we got all the iron cleaned. Yes, there were some other little things that I needed to get over and take care of. But I was working on.
Patrick, go ahead.
Sorry. Is it Steve, are you the inspector?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Patrick Hoffman, and we haven't met. Yep, so you're asking and you're asking the council for us to start a petition? 'Cause we
Yes,
haven't filed a
yes.
petition yet. One thing I want to make, council know, if you're not aware, like, we get council's approval to start the petition and for abatement process, which actually just kicks off another process of hearings with the court as part of city court and ends in an order for abatement if the property is not remediated before then. These cases do not, then, and we shouldn't advertise this, but they're not, there's plenty of due process afforded. Judge Peggy Swati did hear these, or we had a series of time where we had quite a few of these going, and she listens to people, some of the same things we're hearing tonight. But if we don't start the process, if we don't start it, then we can never get to the end where the city could take that final action if the property is never reviewed. So, I haven't been briefed on this specifically, but I would just want to make sure council understands that simply kicking off a petition for abatement and we'll get the right address, and obviously you know about it, so that's good. And you know that you have city codes to comply with, and
Yes.
you know the house has had a fire and hasn't been
Yes.
built. So all these things are not new information to you. I
No.
So,
And I know the house needs work. Now, the letter that I received for this hearing saying it was to be dilapidated. The house is not dilapidated. The house can be repaired. Is it livable now? No. But somebody had the time to put into it, and it wouldn't take much
the city
to
would
make
yeah.
it livable.
We would much prefer someone to make it livable than us demo it, but we can't do anything unless we get started.
No, and
So I would ask council to let us start the process. We're not gonna knock it over tomorrow, obviously. He's gonna have a lot more due process if he lets keep going here.
And have you advertised it for sale?
Yes,
Okay, what about
I have a guy right now that's advertising it to, a different market rather than just locally. I've had signs out there with for sale signs on it, and for some reason they always end up
Okay,
disappearing.
the way things transpired, Patrick, with the certified letter, the $2,500, he did receive the letter, the $2,500. And then it got voted the next day. Where do we stand with the city and him about the $2,500?
On the mowing,
Yes,
I mean, my position is people have the landowner, ultimately the owner has the duty to keep the lawn mowed. We try and give them notice. If you didn't get the letter, but you haven't mowed your yard in 30 days, which I don't know what your defense is for not having mowed. So we'll take that and we'll file a lien, against the property until it's paid as a tax. What I assume we'll do. I mean, it does have, these things happen. We have out-of-state owners, we have people who frequently don't contact. There's always a fair amount of these
so
properties.
what he knows when he sells a lot, there'll be a $2,500 lien against the property. That what you understand?
Anything the city has to expend for our funds,
And-
that doesn't get paid by the owner, we ask them to pay it, and if they don't pay it, we put it as a lien.
Because I kind of feel kind of bad that he didn't get the $2,500. So was he notified beforehand that the city was going to clean it up and charge you?
No,
Yes,
that's the letter I'm talking about.
Oh.
Now, the year before, yes, I received a letter and we went over and we cleaned up most of it. I mean, we got all the iron out of it, we got all the trees cleaned up, got all that stuff taken care of. Now, the letter from this, I guess this last summer, when they did the mowing, I never got that letter. And that's what I'm saying.
charge last year, you took care of it.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that was when I contacted them and said, hey, I've got somebody going in, they're gonna come up and mow it.
But the year before the iron, you took care of that, you did what he said to do, you cleaned it up, there was never a charge for 2 years ago.
Right,
That was cool, and this year, not cool, all of a sudden you gotta mix up.
Right.
so when I witnessed this property, I didn't have any contact information. When I checked the Orca, it had the PO box listed on your tax file, and I didn't have a good phone number. It wasn't until we had that conversation, when I finally talked to a couple of people who had your number, that I was able to reach out to you. And when we did send the certified letters, I told them to do a certified letter, so I have evidence that we sent it to the letter on file with your tax records. It's not, at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to update your tax records, and that's what I instructed them to do. And I'm sorry that your tax records are not updated, but the PO box that he had
but
is,
yet I still receive my tax papers.
I don't know. What I do know,
That's what I don't understand. I mean, I'm
I
receiving
can't explain it.
everything else except for that.
Yeah, I can't explain it. All I know is that I instructed them to do certified letters so that we can't control what the post office.
So, to make it even more confusing, I have a record from US Postal Service that said that it was picked up on May the 2nd, delivered individual picked up at the postal facility. And then we got it returned to us back in, that would have been, looks like April, May. We finally got this thing come back to us a couple weeks after that, so I don't know how all that went.
Okay, well, I think we need to just get the thing going, get the hearing going, then you can figure it out and wherever, let's just go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we start, well, how do I need to say this?
Petition, I think, is what the.
Petition, a hearing for condemnation of the property at 705 East Fourth Street, also Kansas.
I'll second.
Counselor Bernard has made a motion to begin a petition for abatement of 704 East Fourth Street. Counselor Coates has seconded that motion. Any dialogue, any necessary? 705, sorry, 705 East Fourth Street. All right, okay. Any debate, any concerns? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. So we'll begin the abatement, and clearly there's gonna be some kind of discussion. We may hear back about 2,500, right? Okay.
Thank you, Council.
And that was my only
Yeah.
question was, is there any way we can?
Yeah, you
knock
guys
this out?
talk it through, and, you know, we need to have you back, we will. We don't wanna be.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
You've got my address. right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
So,
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
thank you.
Yeah, you guys have a good evening too. All right, next one is Article C of Personnel Policies and Procedures, that is agenda item report 24-024. Dustin, you want to give us a quick summary of this?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just me going through our personnel manual and updating it. Some highlights that I want to bring your attention to that are new. Requested by staff, but I've introduced it to you individually. Is the comp time with the added parameters of, I capped it at 60 hours. Because I want it to be a tool for us to use to not pay overtime and give the staff time, but on the other end, I don't want to see never ending accumulation. The other one is just giving staff an option for vacation days cash out, because some people just don't. Some people just don't take time off, but it gives them an added incentive, because I don't want vacation time to pile up either, because that can be a nightmare on our annual budgets and. I've already introduced these to you individually, but it's just me adding them to the.
We talked about this, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah, these are just officially going into.
And the employee's been made aware of this.
yes, before I bring anything to council, I introduce it to my department heads and guide me on what they want to see.
If they're okay with it,
As far as I know, yes.
I
And
make a
then
motion, we approve the item report agenda 204-026.
I will second that.
Counselor Panther has made a motion to approve the Article C of Personnel Policies and Procedure, that's agenda item report 24-024. Counselor Bernard has seconded that motion. Any debate, discussion over that item? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Cora process approval. Justin, you want to go through it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it. Council, I had a 4 requests last week that, as you heard about in my emails. I was a little shocked because I go to one department, we're billing people for it, and I go to the other, hey, we just do it all the time. And there was no centralized process, and I also didn't like the fact that we weren't tracking it as an organization. Individual departments were not me, not. So what I did reach out to Patrick to get some guidance, and I based this policy on what he submitted to me from Reno County and other stuff that he's doing. And this is kind of what we came up with. The statute does allow us to charge people for core requests, for staff time and for physical pages, electronic. I didn't feel it was fair to charge people, but $25 per hour is what I propose, because in other places, what I don't like is the staff time that it takes to figure out an hourly wage. And it's just easier to do $25 that includes their hourly pay as well as their benefits to cover the time that someone takes to fulfill a core request. Obviously, police department does it a lot more, but the city clerk's office still has their fair share. My main purpose for doing this is I want traceability, with the, I want to be able to track requests, so I want to filter everybody through our, online form or through the, physical form and, just bill people for their time, because they are taking time out of their normal city duties to do that.
Right, Patrick, question for you. Does he have the ability to make exemptions or to say, well, so that would be one question I would have. And then does he, you know, if I'm a customer or whatever, I'm like, hey, I want all this stuff. Can you give them an estimate? I mean, they're gonna want an estimate.
Yeah, so that's what, so Kansas Open Record Act, by statute, you actually have to give someone an estimate. So, a couple things about it, the process, the person has to ask for it. One thing we worked on was just getting a standardized form, because frequently, especially if you don't have a policy, someone will say, hey, can I have an X, Y, Z? And especially if it's local, and then later it's like, you didn't track it, was it really a pull request? So that's why, to make them all look the same, have a form. And then the staff, by the statute, the city has 3 days, I believe, to respond, not necessarily respond by giving it, but say, hey, got your core request, and we estimate it will take 0.2 hours time, you know, so then the requesting party has to make a decision whether or not to pay, because they're required to pay in advance. Kind of what I see, where I sit, is there's like 2 or 3 categories. One is like the local request of like, you resident of Ellsworth, hey, can I have the minutes? I want to see the new policy, so that's a category. But there are also kind of a category of what I call like national research people who will come in and be like, hey, and they'll make relatively huge demands. Callie's shaking her head like, you know, someone from Ohio who wants a lot of information. That information has value and use to someone who's looking at a lot of things. Some of them are companies that tell people how to do bids, for example, or anyway. So that kind of thing can just wreck your day if you're the city clerk of Ellsworth, Kansas. And so we're not required, what we're required to do is say, hey, we need this much money and it'll take us about this long to respond to your request.
So basically, it's, do you really want these records?
Yeah, I mean, that's a part of it, because, and I've definitely had people who scale back their requests afterwards.
Can
And you
we-
do not have to fabricate anything you don't already have.
Right.
One idea is, can we like charge local residents $1 an hour, out of residents $25 or $50 an hour?
I don't like that idea for legal purposes,
Oh,
because the whole,
if a taxpayer comes in, they should be able to get that information.
you know, there was a time years ago where there was one controversial thing or newsworthy thing and Patty ended up just having it on her computer, so she could just click and send it to someone. So I think if it was something that literally took a staff person
Yeah.
less than a minute, because they just know it's there, we might not make them do the paper.
I think this is more along the lines of, we get sometimes where we'll get a core request from some random agency out of like Timbuktu, and they want 15 pages of financial, whatever it may be,
However,
and it takes.
you could also get a resident asking for a lot of information as well.
Oh,
That's
correct,
a-
but
that does happen.
literally what he was talking about is the typical situation that we deal with.
$25 an hour sounds cheap though for that.
You know, I think, so the statute says, you know, you have to charge, you're supposed to aim it at the rate, but including benefits and taxes and everything. So the cumulative rate of the person fulfilling the request, and Dustin and I talked, anybody that would be doing this for the city would be probably, if we calculate it out, it'd be more than 25.
And if you're the person doing it, $25 an hour, you like, no. If I've had to do my own, so no, it's not. I don't think it's too much.
So going back to what Don's saying, so it's a local resident, let's say the newspaper, like my initial thoughts are great, but I mean, we shouldn't be charging them nominally.
I think-
That's part of their business, and you would think that probably a conversation would take care of a lot of what they wanted, but he would have the discretion legally to say, I'm not gonna charge you for that, just not do it.
Keep in mind, agendas and minutes are on our website.
Yeah,
Right.
that's different.
I mean, that knocks a lot of it out.
Right.
If someone, so it leads you down the policies and bits, again, a lot of this stuff, if you know where to look for it, a lot of our stuff's already out there. But it is, sometimes you can see these called sunshine laws, and, you know, people, we do everything that we do, we try and make everything as transparent as possible, unless it's an employee situation or some very rare circumstance.
But they still have access to that, don't they? I mean, if they core request, they're like, I want this, I mean, can we restrict that?
An employee?
Yeah.
No, employees that's the one area where we really are limited to what we can say about employees, just like start date, end date, and some information about their wages, pretty
So
much all we can get.
If we break it into 2 places, residents and non-residents, could we be discriminated,
I see, that's what I was kind of getting there, like, because it's a sunshine law, and the whole idea is transparency in government, if you start to categorize
Yeah.
requesters, you can see the slippery slope of like, oh, I don't like your request, so let me calculate.
Oh.
There have been government entities who, some requesters feel like they calculate the.
And then
request
Stan
differently.
said, could he have discretionary whether to charge or not then? Or are you back in the same boat?
I think if I think if staff think it's a de minimis request, that it's just not gonna hardly take any time at all, they have some discretion, but if it's,
Okay.
but I.
Leave it up to their own discretion when it's.
I mean, if someone comes in and asks.
But I think $25 an hour.
Simple, not that it's 30 seconds.
I don't wanna make too much rules about, because you could get in this scenario where like a local vendor wanted a lot of information, I'd have to come up with a fact pattern, but like, they might be local, but they might put staff to do a lot of information. And then all that time is all their staff time is taxpayer money that they're not doing their job they're supposed to be doing, so we kind of wanna be careful. But the policy we put in place, Dustin, Roy and I think this is a modern, fairly standard policy, what we're submitting to you guys.
So we're given the discretion, we're just all agreeing. that we
Yeah,
have
I think so,
discretion.
yeah.
Karen out,
25, and then if it
yeah, it
It's
sucks,
all-
yeah,
raise it up.
right.
Okay.
When you talk to the local folks, and if they've got some, about this Homolka edition, and they wanna know everything that we're doing, maybe you do charge, or maybe you don't, but that would be your decision.
Okay.
That sounds fair.
Okay.
You need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the core policy as presented, including the $25 per hour staff fee as well as the 25 cent per page.
I'll second.
Councilman Johnson has made a motion to approve the four policy approval, for staff time of $25 an hour and 25 cents a page, and Councilor Hanson has seconded that motion. Any concern, or discussion, debate? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. On to quotes for tablets.
That's.
you can't be excused yet.
I gotta go home and take my own
I asked Next Tech to put together 3 groups of quotes for 3 different style of tablets, because after the changeover and just me, I tried submitting it to Next Tech to redo and put all the security stuff on it, and it cost more to reformat it than it was worth, because it was 11 years old. So, I asked him to put together 3 quotes, because since it is 11 years old, they didn't recommend Apple, because Apple is just too expensive. But these are the 3 quotes, but these quotes also include the time it takes to, get it ready for y'all and all that stuff. So I just wanted to see if this is something you wanted to go with, or. The only downside is any new tablets I get, even if I were to do the Amazon option, I'd still would like them to go through and install their security stuff on it.
So we're talking about replacing the.
Yes.
Well, I'm all for it. I
Well,
love
he was
that.
gonna have me restore the one that somebody turned, Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne turned in.
And it was from 2013, and I was like, this thing's like a dinosaur, there's no way that you're gonna. I was like,
So a
why don't we,
dinosaur was trying to make it work.
well, why don't we consider getting a new fleet of them?
Yeah.
That's smart, I mean, he's saying.
Okay, I'm not computer savvy, what do you and Callie recommend would be the best option for it?
Price, since, unless you're power users, I think unless, basic,
For that long, yeah.
I mean, do we have mine's working fine, does it need to, do you need to be, does it need updated for security, or is it already secure? 'Cause I mean, I don't have any problems with mine.
the Next Tech has not given me advice one way or the other. Callie and a couple of others felt that the cost of having it reformatted was,
Like when somebody leaves.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
I guess you could recycle them as you go,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know how the ages of all these are, I mean, they're all different ages.
So we'd standardize, like right now, we just say.
that's one
That's
option.
what,
So they would put our emails on and everything.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
I'd be okay with that.
I'll do the core request.
Yeah, that's a lot better than having phone go crash. I don't know if they know the story.
No,
I'll tell them later.
I accidentally locked his phone. That's it. I was trying to help him with his email and it prompted me to set up a PIN. And once I did, we both forgot. So-
Yeah. 4.5 hours later, slide at Kansas City, I barely got it going. I lost almost all my stuff.
You know, I did this work for years and I can tell you, I learned the hard way. There's just a point in time where it's just not worth having. You know, you're gonna save way more money just to replace them, and I don't know if we're at that point, but it's just the way it is. I watch people limp along forever and have nightmare after nightmare. It's just like, get it.
That's why I wondered if you just wanted to do another week of
Yeah.
them to start, I don't know.
Do we have money for them? For anything?
Yeah, I could wait and if. I'm
I
done,
can wait.
then
You could,
get the new,
Yeah.
however, if.
you
Yeah.
could, like, you go stack, you could go two.
Yeah, it's working fine. I only turn it on, for this. Everything else I just look on my phone.
I'm the same as
So I don't
Tyler.
use it, I don't. really
Right,
use it
but you
all.
said like 2 times a month,
A month,
so
yeah.
for me, I could wait.
Yeah, I could wait.
If you wanted to stagger them, I.
Well, like Dawn's gonna need one and whoever, if you guys think working, then yeah.
I'm gonna admit it, I'm being selfish. I hate this thing. That's
So
just.
that's, you need to do what, yeah. So we need 2 for sure.
I'm worried
That's
about,
fine, I just need help with email.
I just
Maybe if that,
hate.
because they'll still give you a bid for two of them,
It's so proud of my hand.
Yes,
That wouldn't be a big.
that's correct. That's what I just wanted to visit with you and your guys.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll get at least 3 of them.
Yeah, stagger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess the other question would be the Microsoft or the Samsung.
I'm not sure.
That'd be something to look at reviews and just to see what the prices are.
Microsofts are a lot more expensive.
Uh-oh.
Twisting their arm now.
We could have our meetings outside so we can all take pictures of the moon. With Aaron and something.
Yeah, look, you guys make a decision. I mean, I think.
I'll get with my guy Jeff Weigel.
Yeah.
All
All right.
I make a motion that we approve, the post for 3 new tablets. And the plan is, up to Cali and Destin, come up with the most feasible plan. And quote, is that all right?
Okay.
Second?
Counselor Panzer has made a motion to approve the purchase of 3 new tablets. Callie and Dustin will make the actual decision on which brand we go with. Counselor Johnson has seconded that motion. Any discussion? We'll stagger these. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Department heads, David, do you have anything?
I don't know if it's anything, but, you were talking about the BG,
Uh-huh.
you were talking about all these, stuff about bringing in new lines and stuff on the well. I do know that we do lose water from the wells to the water plant. Now, have we seen a leak there? Because all of it's sands, all of it's going down, all of that stuff. So my recommendation is, yes, work forward to getting those lines there, because if you don't, we're, like you said, we're gonna be way over our deal, and, I do have meters on the backwash. I do have meters on all of our, silos. Water goes up into silos and stuff like that. So we do have ways of knowing how much water we do, take and use in the plant. So, at one time I had Excel spreadsheet at one time, and I had all this on there, but it got disappeared, before I left. And I had all this on there, so all I had to do was print out that sheet. And I could give it to Angela or anybody else, and they could say, okay, well, we use this amount of money, our water, doing these things. So we could count that off of our loss. So that would bring down our loss, because our loss is, for the backwards and stuff like that, we can count that off. And that would bring our loss way down. I haven't been able to get back into, getting that spreadsheet back up again, which I'd like to do, and I'm working on stuff like that. But, that in tune would bring down, like I said, bring down that loss, so we wouldn't be as high as what he was saying we're losing. He's saying we're almost up to 28%, well, we're really not, if we can figure out, all the water that we use in the water plant and recycle back and stuff like this.
So what you're saying, there's a calculation to be made about loss. Take that under consideration.
Yeah, but yeah, we are losing water from the well to the plant. I think it was 3 point something, thousand gallons of fruit, something like that. That I figured that we lost in just this year alone. From going from the wells to the water plant. But that's all I wanted to
It's important. Thank you. Officer Wagon, do you have anything?
I nothing new from the police department right now.
Okay. Is there anybody else out there? Steve, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Is that everybody for the department heads? Oh, sorry, Callie.
Oh, I mean, I'm out.
I think you're trailing.
Yeah, I have my own thing,
You're trailing.
but no, I don't have anything.
Okay.
Go and see me when you get there.
City attorney, do you have anything?
I'm requesting an executive session at the end of the meeting, and then also just continue to work with Dustin and the city staff to get to know everything. And Callie identified a need for a social media policy for when we can, delete posts, and we might bring that to you in the future.
Okay, like it. Is that it, Patrick?
Yes.
All right, Callie,
Okay.
you good? All right, Dustin,
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. I've
okay,
already said everything, sent everything in my essence.
okay, sure, that's it, okay. Tyler, do you have anything?
I don't know.
No? Sure, okay. Council President, do you have anything?
Just sometime, I think we should bring up the Creasy Park discussion again, although it makes me nervous. Knowing that we have to throw some money at that project. But still, we started something, at least we started a conversation, we need to bring it back up, yeah, so that's really, gosh, I meant to look at the address, but somebody asked me recently, is the dip on the street that the library goes down, was that Second Street?
Yeah.
Like,
Blocks down.
yeah,
East,
I guess I
east.
couldn't do anything about that dip, and I'm like,
It'd probably be like,
you're
gotta
gonna
get in Washington maybe, or.
yes, I think so, yeah. So anyway, I just got that feedback recently.
Okay.
I don't think any damage is done to their car, but they sure.
Yeah.
So they hadn't been down that
And I
much.
can see sparks.
Yeah.
And I can see sparks under.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
Say it's fun streets. Anyway, that's it, Justin. All right, Council Johnson, you have anything?
Not the moment.
All right, Council Payne.
Just a couple small things, with the weather getting warmer, and I don't know what it takes to do it, but we need to really address those potholes in front of Ampride. You see cars bottom out through there, and someone's gonna get the car tore up, and then they're gonna say, well, the city had those potholes there. And what it is those, they're deep, yeah, they're deep and they're, yeah, so.
Is it the one, Don, is it the one over by Casey's?
No, it's the other one.
Okay,
Ampride,
got it.
it's that where you turn and go north. It's really bad through there.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, on the Creasy Park thing and that you brought up, we probably should contact Phil Chetwigan with the federal
think Dustin talked to him, didn't you?
Did you
At
talk
NRCS?
to Phil Jeff Wigan up at the FDA and I was.
NRCS.
NRCA.
Yes.
Okay, he said he has a report that he would like, that he would give to the city if we would request it.
Which report is it?
It's a report about the situation at Creasy Park and all the bad problems that we're gonna face in the next year with noxious weeds, bacteria, fungus, all kinds of stuff that he has come up with that needs to be addressed now, or you're gonna have severe problems down the road. He told me this one-to-one, but I said, we need to hear it as a council. We don't need to just talk to one person.
Okay.
So I said, I'll have Dustin get a hold of you and we'll get that report, or we can have him come talk to us as a council, maybe it's a good idea. That way we don't have, he said, she said, he said, you know, that's just an idea to go back to what Jessica's looking for.
Sure. I'll
And
reach
that's,
out to him.
I'm pretty easy, that's all I had.
All right, very good. Nothing else? All right, okay, Darcy? All right, nothing for Darcy, and then I've got some news for you. I'm gonna have to talk to the Cowtown Committee. Because of resurfacing Douglas and the wild card that has become, they decided that this year would not be the year to do the parade. They didn't want to get everything lined up and everything planned. And then, you know, it could be a nightmare. So they just said, hey, let's wait till next year. Let's concentrate on the concerts. We're gonna sell some tables and, you know, there were a lot of activities planned, but just the unknown was just scary.
And why, I'm sorry, why is this not gonna happen, something on Douglas, what?
Yeah, we're gonna resurface Douglas this summer. So Kirk and Michael, they're in the process of, the last time we heard it was July. You know, they didn't wanna plan this and then, you know, be in the way of all the construction equipment and they just said, you know what? You know, we're just getting this thing started again. Let's do something different. So if you wanna talk to Jeannie and Jessica, they'll explain. It was unanimous vote. Everybody agreed. So I got that news, and I think that's the big news that I've got, is that, so, it's a good group, we still need volunteers. We've got an executive, committee now, we have leaders, but we need people to do the work, so we still need volunteers, so. Gonna constantly be asking, but really happy with the people that have showed up to lead. I don't know who the musical act is on Saturday night, but I know he's been on The Voice, I mean, they're paying quite a bit to fly him in from Nashville. So I'm expecting a lot of people. So our challenge is gonna be crowd control, law enforcement, how to get people in and out of the area. It's gonna be a challenge. So I think that with that challenge, which is gonna be daunting, and the parade, it just was like, hey, let's wait till 2025, you know, on the parade. So I think it was a smart move. All right, so how many minutes do we want, Patrick?
That's great. What do you think, Dustin? 15 or 20 or more or less?
This is not elected personnel, is it?
Yeah, not like a performance, not like a personnel. What is your guess?
10 minutes.
10, good. That's okay, great.
And city attorney,
Administrator and council.
okay, all right, so in motion for.
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to adjourn into executive session for non-elected personnel performance. Performance of non-elected personnel to include the governing body, city administrator, city attorney, and come out at 7:38.
I second it.
All right, Council Wilson made a motion to go into executive session with the city council, the mayor, the city attorney, city administrator, and to come out at 7:38.
To go.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Okay, Jessica.
The,
You got it. Section doc.
Okay.
Go on.
That's your counseling chair now.
Yeah, it feels weird.
I don't know, it's kind of.
Every room is
Yeah.
different.
She's stating that.